listening to 27 Talks Podcast. Step into the world of hair. We've got ideas and stories to share. Supporting salon culture and life. We'll provide the education. One talk at a time. You're listening to 27 Talks Podcast. With your host, Amber Pope. We'll tell you all you need to know. Let us be your inspiration. Won't you join us for the ride? One talk at a time.
This episode, Amber sits down with her friend, lead singer of Less Than Jake, Chris DeMakes.
Hi, and welcome to 27 Talks. On this episode, I sat with my friend, Chris DeMakes, lead singer of Less Than Jake. Chris shares with me that his love of music all comes from the songs and how he gets to explore that with other artists on his podcast, Chris DeMakes a Podcast. With nearly 30 years with his band and numerous ways that he shares his art publicly, Chris was the first person I thought of when I set out to discuss how creating art can face challenges when growing exposure happens. But remembering why you do what you do, tuning out the negativity, and staying true to yourself, your craft, and growing a little thicker skin. Enjoy the episode. Well, I am so excited to introduce not only my friend, but the amazing lead singer of Less Than Jake, Mr. Chris DeMakes himself. Thank you so much for being on 27 Talks with me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me give me the opportunity to perform your theme song.
No kidding, right? Like the fact that so you and I let's go back. You and I have been friends for like 17 years. Can it possibly be that long?
I'm trying to think if I knew you before you and Chet moved to Tampa. Did I meet you before then?
But like we really like obviously got to really know each other living in Tampa, which was like circa we moved there in 2005, and you were like one of the first people we stumbled into there.
Well, I was gonna say I was shocked. You came. I played an acoustic grand opening of my friend's record store. One of the last people to ever open a record store because it's not very lucrative anymore. But that was in 2005.
Yeah.
And you and Chet came to see me play, and I was just. It's weird when you see people out of context.
Yeah.
You know, you're used to seeing people in a certain place, and then you're like, whoa. And I've been embarrassed before because I've had friends show up that I've known for a long time to a different area, and I'm looking and going, how do I know you? I'm stumbling for their name, and then it hits you like a ton of bricks, you know?
Like, oh yeah, it's totally, but you're not supposed to be here. I kind of felt that way moving to Florida too. I wasn't supposed to be there, but we stayed. We were there for 4 years.
You and Chet are gluttons for punishment. You moved to hell, Florida, and then you moved back to hell in Phoenix. It's like hot.
So true. Just different variations.
But it's a dry heat. It's a dry heat. Yeah.
Whatever they mean by that, it's a dry heat. Yeah. Tell that to my cracking skin. I'm aging, but I'm old enough as it is already, and the desert's killing me. Well, so yeah, okay. So we've been friends forever, but getting to know you at that time in Florida, really kind of seeing you as an artist, getting to know you as a person. I mean, holy crap, those so many years ago, and like all these great joyful memories that I have getting to know you. And you truly are one of the most charismatic, self-confident, friendliest, open, artistic people that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting and calling my friend. And I want to hear a little bit about telling our listeners, you know, who you are as lead singer and who you are as an artist, and kind of segueing back, if we can roll back past 2005 all the way to, you started Less Than Jake in 92?
92, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah. So I thank you for the wonderful, nice compliments, things you said about me. A lot of them are true, and a lot of them are some of the things you said, you know, that self-confidence. A lot of that just comes from having to be, you know, that alpha person in a band, the lead person in a band. You have to, either you're the timid person that's up at the mic, you know, hey, how you doing, Phoenix? Or you're that guy. And and punk rock's helped that, because you could be that guy. You could be that loud, brash person. But yeah, I grew up in a musical household. My parents were very supportive. They didn't care of what kind of music I listened to. They enjoyed it. They would, go to shows. It was a complete stark contrast to most people's parents. They would let me wear whatever shirts I wanted to, barring if it was too offensive to get into, the school wouldn't let me in with it. So very supportive. Mom and dad played. My parents were singers. So they, were always out playing. My earliest memories were in smoky bars and nightclubs with mom and dad when I was young, and it just was kind of in my blood. I loved it. And then, yeah, as you said, I formed the band in '92, and we just, were a couple of friends that just wanted to write some music together. The songs are always have to come first before you can go play a show. Then it was like, well, now we want to go play live, and maybe we'll get some free beer out of this. And that was it. And it was nothing more than that. And then the free beer went to, we can play a club now. And then, hey, this guy wants to put out a record, and and then this, and then you just start connecting the dots. And then you go out and you start playing in other states. And from there, you meet people. Without this band, I never would have met you. I met your husband through the Ataris when he was working for them. And it's just, I don't know where the time went. Sometimes it feels like it's been an eternity, and other times it feels like I blink my eyes and I'm talking to Amber 30 years later.
It's so crazy. So crazy. You guys have had quite a journey, and I mean, that exposure from starting just like a few friends. I mean, even though our industries are completely different, I mean, there's similarity in the way that you come together, right? Like, I started the salon super small. It was just me and a couple friends, and we just made good hair and supported each other because we loved to do it. And I had a vision, and you have that hope that, like, yeah, this is going to take off. I want to be successful at what I'm doing because I'm putting so much heart and soul into it. And I look back, I feel like I started this salon. Now my career is, I was a stylist prior to hair. So yes, I look back and I'm like, in 2005, when I was like doing hair in Tampa, seems like yesterday. And now I can't believe my business is over 5 years old. But starting it so small, and then as it grows and grows and grows, you do kind of take yourself into a bit of a different journey, and you're putting yourself out there in sort of a vulnerable way. And this is why I wanted to chat with you, because I felt like, gosh, I put every single like haircut that I do, every, bit of creation that I put out there to a guest, out there to a team member to lead them. And it's heart and soul and artistry, and then heart and soul and artistry, and really putting yourself out there kind of on display. And as you began with Less Than Jake, and starting from a small, like just playing tiny clubs and going up, more and more exposed, what did that look like for you? And I mean, I know you said punk rock kind of was the breeding place for that self-confidence, but talk a little bit about how that journey like grew you into dealing with being exposed and being that vulnerable of putting your art out there for the masses, and what that looks like on the inside for you.
Well, I first of all, you had mentioned when you first started, you had said that, we're not really in the same world, hair and this, but they are both, at the end of the day, as much as a musician, you don't want to look at it as a business. It's a career. Yeah. But there is a bleed over, or a crossover, I should say, between hair and, most of the hair salons and stylists, they're kind of the misfits. You guys are constantly changing your hair, lots of tattoos, piercings, and a lot of people I've met in salons are punk rockers, And over the years, when I was doing my hair blue and doing this and that, I wasn't walking into Bill's barber shop. You'd walk out with a crew cut. No, I was going to hair salons. So tons of people over the years I've met that do hair. So I totally get where you're coming from and get that. To answer your question, though, going back, when you're that young, you're kind of just flying by the seat of your pants. And like I said, there was a combination. It's kind of like the comedians that, a lot of them deep down there, you hear they're sad inside, but they portray this thing because they make everybody else happy. I was definitely, I think a lot of it came from where I came from in high school. I wasn't the nerd. I wasn't the prom king. I was just kind of in the middle. You know, I played sports. I was into music. I was liked, but I always felt like an outsider. I don't really know why, but I just never felt like I fit in. I would go to the school dance and I'd be standing there looking at these people and they'd be dancing sober and I'd be going, I don't understand I just don't get it. And I just didn't feel like I could go, hey, let's hang out. I never felt this camaraderie. And I discovered punk rock and I discovered this complete abandon. And it was the first time that I didn't care and that I felt like I belonged in something. And when I moved to Gainesville, Florida, it was the only liberal place in Florida, you know, uber liberal place, the hippie college town. And I got there, and in the punk rock scene, it was in stark contrast to the punk rock scene that was in South Florida. Here it was all inclusive. You know, I think I knew, you knew of what kids maybe were gay in school, or, you know, but it was kind of a hush hush thing 30 years ago. It wasn't, especially in conservative South Florida. I got to Gainesville, there was gay, lesbian, black punk rockers, Asian punk rockers. It was just this melting pot, and everyone was trying to figure out who the hell they were, and it was all inclusive. And that's what I liked about it. And it kind of gave me this confidence to just be who I was, act like a complete idiot. And sometimes you'd get shit for it. Most of the time people would laugh at you, but at the end of the day, it was accepted, you know? And that's kind of what the allure was for me. I finally felt like, okay, I found something that I can identify with.
Yeah, and I think that being brought up into that sort of like immersive, all accepting world allows you to really become, you know, who you are and have that self-confidence. It's amazing that was your, like, you know, the band's nursery ground there. You guys really came into who you would be. When, you know, you started kind of having success, sort of like maybe, what was that? Was that like losing streak, or prior to, like, where was kind of that launch pad for you guys in terms of exposure from?
Well, you know, so the record you're referring to, Losing Streak, that was when it was our first major label record. We got signed to Capitol Records in late 95. That record came out a year later in the fall of 96. But to go with what you're talking about, we were feeling that in Gainesville, in the microcosm of Gainesville, because as much as the punk rock was all inclusive, it still was kind of cliquey, you know. And we were starting now to see like fraternity guys coming to watch us play, and the punk rockers didn't like that. Okay. And so the politics early on, I was seeing it within the scene, to where, to me, I identified with this whole punk rock subculture, but like, people were people to me, and this is supposed to be inclusive. So what if the guy shows up with boat shoes and pleated pants on, you know, and a parted haircut? He's allowed in here, right? As long as he, you know, or she has the same ideals that we have. So we started selling out the, you know, 150 seat punk rock club, and then we moved up to the 400 seat punk rock club, and now we were selling that out. And we're starting to feel backlash. We're starting to hear the cries of what was known in the 90s as you're a sellout. Okay. And I would think it was a little easier back then, because either you had to actually read it in print, or someone had to like say it to you, to your face. Now it's right here.
Right.
It's instantaneous. You go on Yelp and you want to read reviews of your salon, they did this or they did that. So that, you have to have a filter for what's important and what's not.
Yeah.
People all the time, you know, someone will be like, you know, check this out. And there's times you'll read reviews of a new record. I'll go on Amazon, there's reviews, and it'll be completely, it has nothing to do with the new album. It'll just say, yeah, I met Chris one time after a show and he was an asshole. Okay. Well, maybe I was, but we're all human, and maybe it was 20 below in Denver, and this guy will not stop talking to me drunk, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna go and get warm. I'll see you later. You have to, you know, you have to. You can't always please people.
Yeah.
It's the word I'm looking for. You can please yourself, and as long as you're not hurting anybody, then people can say what they want about you. And I've definitely built up thick skin. You have to in this business. And I mean, I'm a mid-level band. We've had certainly more success than 95% of the bands around the world that people would give their left foot to be where my band's at. I'm not taking anything away from what we've done, but for the most part, we still have our anonymity. I mean, I couldn't even imagine being Madonna, Michael Jackson, these type of celebrities where you can't even take your kids to the mall on a Saturday afternoon. I wouldn't have done well with that at all. I wouldn't have. And I know I have friends of mine that are superstars that are, it's tough to, and I've been out with them to where it's like, okay, dude, let's just go back to the bus. It's just this hounding, and you can't even like hang out with your friend. And so I kind of went off on a tangent there, but yeah.
No, the tangents are great, but I totally see what you're saying though. I mean, it is good that you still have this life that is yours, right? Like you still get to keep that. And like at the end of the day, you still have, I'm Chris, I know who I am, and building up that thick skin is so important. And I know that's a work in progress for so many people in all types of walks of life and all industries. And even just personally, like you talked about the phone. I mean, really right there in your hand is like a quick like temperature check or barometer of like, how well am I being accepted? How well, like, is someone liking my post? Is someone da 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 da? And it's this like rat race of wanting acceptance, wanting perfectionism, wanting to be loved by everybody. And it is a really strange headspace to be in. Now, I went on a tangent again, but I really do think that, because you have had exposure out there, I feel like your input on how to develop that thick skin. So say like you put out a record for, and we'll just use your art versus my art, so you put a record out there that you bleed for, maybe lyrically you bled for it, or it was just really hard, like it came to you, it was cathartic, you had to get it out of you. And then what do you do with that? Like you as an artist, once that comes out of you, do you want to just like smash and burn it, or do you want to praise it? Or if it gets negative feedback, how do you deal with those feelings that comes from inside when you create?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to try to throw it back to what you do. It's just kind of like, you give a great color and a cut, and someone goes away and you think you did a fantastic job. And, you're on Facebook 3 days later and one of her friends is like, I hate it.
Right. You're like,
well, when that person left the salon, you were proud of what you did in your heart, and you stand by it. And you have to stand by it. There's moments of records or things that we've done that, looking back, maybe it wasn't the greatest thing. It's like anything else, but I always know it's our best foot forward at that very moment that we do it. And we have had records that people didn't like at the time, but I've noticed with our band a kind of a trend that's happened is that people have to catch up with us. When we started the band, we were in I was 18 when I started it, but when we got out and we were actually touring the States, I was, 20, 21 years old, 22 years old. And our fans were 13, 14, 15, 16. So we had almost 10 years on them then, and that's continued to happen. So, we put out a record, this has been happening since the late 90s. We put an album out of stuff that we're going through that they haven't gone through emotionally yet. They have to catch up. So I know now that I would put an album out that someone might not get it. It might not be immediate to them, but it continues to happen where 4 or 5 years later, like, okay, I finally went through my first divorce. I get it, or I lost one of my parents. I get it, so, to answer your question directly of how do you deal with that, you just have to know that you put your best foot forward. I don't write for the fans. I write for me. When the record comes out, you listen to it in the studio, but I don't go back and listen to my work. It would be almost like, you sitting around on a Sunday afternoon saying, you know what, I'm gonna get the scrapbooks out and look at all the haircuts I did from 2005. It probably doesn't happen.
No, because yours would be in there and I don't want to look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I
I
don't either.
remember.
But you make it, and it's a snapshot of that moment in time. It's a documentation. And the only time I ever go back and listen to the records is when we haven't played a certain song in a while. I have to go back and relearn it or listen to it to familiarize myself with it. And that's sometimes really cool, and that's sometimes really strange, and that's sometimes not good. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's really, wow, that really sounds good. I can't believe we haven't played this song. And other times it's strange of like, wow, I don't really like the guitar sound on that. We did that. And other times it's sad. It brings you back to a moment of, someone dying or a breakup or different things.
Yeah.
But, the longer that I do this, I've realized that we still do it for ourselves. That's all you can do it for. I think that when you go to work, you're providing a service, like we're providing a service of music to people. They love our music. You're providing a service, but at the end of the day, yes, you're doing it for people. But if you're not doing it for yourself, like if you got up in the morning and you're like, I don't want to go cut and color and listen to people gossip all day, I don't want to do it, then you'd go find something else to do. And that's the same thing with me.
Yeah. I think there's something really nice about being comfortable in what you do, knowing that it was the right move for you. It's the right artistry. It still keeps that fire lit and burning. And I think, in being able to do what you've done for so many years, yeah, of course you're going to develop those skill sets to kind of tune out and keep moving forward. And I think it's fantastic to hear you talk about, how settled in you are and that you create art for yourself. I built a salon because I wanted to work with like-minded people, and I'm so lucky to get up every morning and be able to do that. And creating great hair that walks out the door is just icing on the cake, because I get to be with other, again, like-minded people doing the same craft, supporting each other and all that. It's honestly, it is hard on every now and again, those one little bits of negative criticism. And I'm not talking about constructive feedback, right? Like not constructive feedback when people just want to tear you down for whatever reason it feels good for them to do. That's where it gets hard to learn the skill set to still stand strong, keep yourself moving forward, don't lose sight of the vision, and keep trucking along. And I feel like, that's something that is, for me, probably always constantly evolving. Do you think that there was ever one point for you that was that tipping point of, I'm not going to let that get in my head anymore? I'm not going to let the infectiousness of people's comments bother me. Is there one defining moment for you, or it just, again, over time?
I definitely think time gives you perspective on everything.
Sure.
But if I really think about what you just asked me, it was probably around the time that we left Capitol Records and we went independent again. And then we got re-signed to a major label. We went back to Warner Brothers after that. But after we were off Capitol, I realized, because there was kind of a chasing the golden apple thing going on for a while. What is success? Well, we haven't sold as many records as Green Day, but we sell more records than that band. And even if we did sell as many records as Green Day or whoever, there's bands that sell more records than them. People are always going to have more than you. What's enough? What's enough? How much money is enough? Are you rich in your heart? Or are you rich in your bank account? So when we left the label, and I realized then that, wow, because the industry had changed. When back in the 70s and 80s, when you were on a label, they gave you money to tour. It was called tour support. That no longer exists. That money doesn't exist. But the label, when you got dropped by a label, you were done. A lot of bands. And here we got dropped by this huge corporate entity, and we booked a tour and went out, and it was still 1,000 people every night. Those fans, we built those fans without, it was on our own. And that's when I realized, okay, this is what we have to focus on. We have to focus on what we have, not what we could have, because you can never estimate how many records you're going to sell. You could write the greatest song. I have a collection of albums with amazing songs that no one's ever heard. So there's a combination of luck, there's a combination of perseverance, and all these other things that go into it. So for me early on, it was, I'm good with my success, and I'm good with what I have. I can only be Chris from Less Than Jake, or Chris DeMakes. I can't be something else. And that's a big lesson to learn, because for the longest time, like I said, it was every week I was calling the label, how many records did we sell this week? Did we get on the radio? Yeah. And once I stopped playing that rat race, and this is going over 20 years now that I haven't felt that way.
Wow.
And that was a good feeling.
That's awesome, because it can be so destructive. It really is so destructive. It's like you said, it's that like negative energy fuels negative energy, right? And so as soon as you can just like let it go and come back to, like you said, to circle back the reasons why you do it, if it's your passion, it's driving you for it, and not letting any of the other chatter derail you from what the vision is. And I think that applies to anything. Obviously your band, I'm, in my salon space, but truly I think anybody who has a vision to put themselves out there in an artistic manner, there's such vulnerability there. It's like you put yourself on display to be like, what everybody think? And then, it is tough. It is tough to get, the public throwing that back at you. But I do think that being solid in yourself should always be the goal. And then as long as you're solid in yourself, the things that you create with good intent are going to land the way that they're supposed to land, because you had good intent to put it out there. And
yeah,
you guys have been doing that for a long time. And you're not just Chris from Less Than Jake. I mean, holy shit, man, you are doing so much stuff right now. Like, you are Chris DeMakes, and you have not only, you guys, Less Than Jake did do a record this year, right? So you guys had Silver Linings that came out, right? So your
yes.
2020, like, can't stop you guys. It's awesome. And then you started your own podcast, and it's mind-blowing. Yes. It's so freaking good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, I think that as time goes by, as you get older, for me, I've told people that it wasn't a midlife crisis. It was just kind of reflecting on my life. And I got home after recording that record. We recorded that album in November of 2019. Finally came out in December of 2020. Kept getting pushed back because we thought we'd be able to tour last year at some point. It didn't happen. But I got home, and I was doing some soul searching. I just had this, again, it wasn't a midlife crisis. It was a midlife realization of, okay, I'm on the back nine, and am I more than halfway through my life? I don't know. If I'm halfway through my life, that means I have to live to like, 94 years old. So, you start to take stock of what's important. In all those years, all I had ever done, I was Chris from Less Than Jake. That's all I ever aspired. It was enough for me. And, touring is a hard grind. Being away from your family, I have young children now, is tough. And we've started to tour a little differently than we used to. It's not 9 months at a time, so we are, tailoring that to suit our individual needs. But I just kind of took stock and was like, who am I? Who am I outside of this band? It's the only, I don't have any regrets all these years. The only thing that I would change, one thing, is that I would have put my last name in the records all those years. It was just Chris. This last record we did is the first record my last name is in. I hate using this word, but I never branded myself. So the hardest part about my podcast is getting people to, like, who the hell's Chris DeMakes? Nobody knows. They know, oh, that's the guy from Less Than Jake. They know that. So I've really worked hard in the last couple of years to get a social media presence, because I know that's important, and kind of define myself outside of the band. And it all goes back to the passion, because I'd gotten home and I said, what else is there for me? I don't even know if I want to do music. I'm so burnt out. I've been doing this for 30 years. And I got a neighbor of mine who he is a plant manager where I live for a pharmaceutical company. And he's like, man, I can get you starting pay. He's like, I'll hook you up. And it wasn't bad money. He was like, I'll get you 17 an hour to go on the line and put pills in bottles, when you're off the road. He's like, I always need help. Because he asked me, could you or your wife help me? And I'm like, I was sitting one night in December, I think, of 2019, and I'm thinking, like, do I want to go do something different? Maybe I'll go sit in a factory and put pills in a bottle, just something outside of this. And I don't know, something just spoke to me that night. Very strange. It was like I had this moment of, why did you start this? What is it about? And it was, the light bulb went off. It's always about the songs. That's my first memory as a young child, was the song. Not playing live, not the record deal, not all the other crap that goes along with it. It was the song. I hadn't went down to my studio, and I went down the next day and I just fired my stuff up. And I wrote a song, and I'll give you the condensed version. All these little things started happening from that moment. A dear friend of the band had lost her father. She was miserable for 3 years. She couldn't enjoy holidays, and she asked me to write this song for her. So I wrote the song. She said, what do I owe you? I said, you don't owe me anything. And she said, no, I need to give you something. This song's amazing. And so I gave her my PayPal, and next thing I know, she paid me an astronomical amount of money for this. I was blown away. And, it's kind of like the light bulb went off. I'm like, I'm going to start writing songs and jingles for people. So I started doing that. I was already had the wheels in motion of putting my first book together that came out last December. It's called Blast from the Past. So the book was doing that. I started doing the custom songs, and I was floored by the response. I could not fill the orders fast enough. So this is now getting into January of last year, February of last year. I started doing one-on-one Zoom consultations with people, writing songs, collaborating, producing, talking about just the music business. And as I'm doing all of this, I wanted to promote my songwriting business with a cartoon, and I hired my friend Chris Fafalios, who's now my manager, as well as my podcast producer. And Chris, for any of the listeners out there, plays in a band called Punchline. They used to be on Fueled by Ramen. So him and I have history together. And we just started talking. He does animation, did this animated cartoon for me for my songs. And one day he's just like, man, you got to do a podcast. And I was like, I don't want to do a podcast. He's like, you got to do one. You'd be great at it. I'm like, I don't want to interview my peers. He's like, no, it wouldn't be an interview. It'd be more like you'd have a theme. You'd talk about songwriting. That's what you're doing, which again, all goes back to the song. So all these little things started happening. And I laugh now that I even had a thought of doing something else, of going to stuff pills in a bottle at a factory, or go do real estate, which I have a real estate license, but it was never a passion. I just went and got the license in between a tour for something to do. But it's all about the music now for me. And it always goes back to it. And it's the gift for me that keeps on giving.
Well, and it's appreciated on this side of it too, because not only is your passion for music so palpable, but at the same time, like, the sharing that you do on the podcast it's so entertaining. You dive into the artistry and the creation of the song, like from every little, like the sentence and the way that like it's musically like arranged, and it's captivating to listen to. So I'm so glad that you didn't stuff pills in a bottle, because what you're doing is so amazing. It's just fantastic. And the book is fabulous too. And you're always been quite the performer. Again, back to that clear with the charisma and self-confidence, because I don't think, out of all the Les and Jake shows and all the times that I've seen you perform, I don't think I've ever seen you crack. And even on like the podcast, you are so who you are all the time. And I mean, if you've ever cracked at any point, I've never seen it, but it's
I definitely have cracked a number of times, but I think there's a certain consistency, and that's the other thing I'm proud of with what I do. It's much like and the reason I keep throwing this back at what you do is because that's what what we're here talking about. But
yeah.
No matter what you do in life, it's like you have to align yourself with successful people and people that want the same goals. You got some people that aren't showing up. This person's 10 minutes late today, and now they're a half hour late. At some point, you're like, you gotta leave next, because that isn't going to grow your business. And people I get asked a lot on my consultations with people, heck, all the time out on the road, fans will write me, I got this band, and what's your secret? And the first thing I always say to them is, you gotta meet the right people. They gotta be like-minded. If they don't want to get up at 8 in the morning because that's too early, because that's what time you want to get up and start doing the band, then find the guy that wants to get up at 8 in the morning. They don't want to tour for 9 months out of the, they only want to tour for 5 months, and that's not the right person for you. Find the people that share the same goals. And if you don't don't find them, keep looking, because if you settle for mediocrity, then that's what you're going to get.
Yeah. Finding those right humans to circle yourself around and
lift
each other up. And I'm always supporting you, always. So even at a distance, and I'm grateful for your support too. And literally, like, going back again, Chris made the theme song for my podcast, and it's so phenomenal. And Chris did the drawing for it as well. So thank you to him as well. And you guys are both great. So
yeah, well, I wish you nothing but luck. And when I'm out there, I'll have you chop my mop.
Yes, that, as I think you referred to it one time, you set me up with saying, sorry about the caveman like skull I have, something along those lines, that it was going to be challenging. I think to this day, you still have the most challenging head of hair I've ever cut.
I think I said Cro-Magnon head.
Something like that.
My dad and I have heads the size of a bull mastiff, and my head's super flat in the back. So it's just, I got cowlicks everywhere. Yeah.
It's all the tools in the toolbox come out when you're cutting.
When I was coming down the conveyor belt, the big man, this guy's like, fuck it, just throw that on it. Give him that head. He's next.
Got all the leftover bits, got all the tricky bits thrown too. Yes. Well, okay. So the last little bit here, as we're wrapping things up, I do my quick fire.
Yep.
And so keeping it funny and lighthearted, here we go. Best hair metal band in your opinion?
Motley Crue.
Fantastic. Musically, I'm going to agree with you. If it's literally, and this wasn't my intention with asking, but if it's just hair wise, best actual like band hair.
Oh, Poison.
Okay. Yeah. Love it. Okay. Weirdest thing that you've ever done as a house guest?
Wow. How long's the quick fire? How long do I have to think of this? Weirdest thing I've ever done.
I'm asking you this because the weirdest thing that I've ever done as a house guest was drink a little too much Jaeger at your home, pass out in your hallway, and wake up to your dog doing inappropriate things to me.
Yeah, he used to like a hump a strange leg.
He did.
Strangest thing I've ever done at someone's house. Well, this is a crazy story. Les and Jake was, back in the day, we I know this is supposed to be quick fire. I'll give the short story. Back in the day, we would get on the microphone at the end of the night and say, hey, we need a place to stay tonight. And, inevitably someone will raise their hand and you can stay at my place. And some nights you'd be at a mansion in the hills somewhere, a $2 million house. And Other times you'd wind up at some punk squat. And I wake up in this like Victorian house. I'm on the couch, and I mean, I have to piss like now. Like, and I checked every door in that house, and I couldn't find a bathroom. And then I go to the backyard. I'm looking, I'm like, well, I'm gonna go pee outside. So I go, and it's dead bolted, but it doesn't have a turn on. You need a key for it. I can't get out. So I go to the front door, and I mean, the sun's just shining, and there's the mail guys going by, and there's traffic, and there's people on the sidewalk walking by. I had to duck behind go behind a bush, like a hedge, and squat down and pee. Yeah. So if that qualifies as weird.
It is weird. That sounds like you were in a very strange house. I think that was actually weirder than that.
I don't even know if they had a bathroom. I could not. I checked every door. No bathroom.
Well, maybe that was normal. You did something normal for that strange house.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, is cereal a soup? Why or why not?
Cereal a soup. What's the gazpacho? Is that the cold soup?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cereal is gazpacho.
It is. It's
That how you
breakfast
pronounce
gazpacho.
Yeah, breakfast. Yeah, breakfast. That's my answer. It's breakfast gazpacho. Gazpacho, is that how you say it?
I think so.
It's a weird
I
word.
think it is.
Gazpacho. I don't like gazpacho. I've had it before.
I don't like cold soup anyway. I don't really care for cereal myself, but okay, what do you ever get nervous to do?
Nervous.
Do you get nervous? I've never seen you be nervous. Do you actually get nervous?
Get nervous to do. If I have to do something that I absolutely don't want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. If I had to, one of my exes, I used to have to go to her work functions, and the people there were just so uptight and straight laced, and it wasn't so much of a nervous, just like I didn't know how to act,
Yeah.
because I remember one time someone saying like, tell me a crazy tour story. And I told them something that I thought was really tame. And then the whole table was like, can you pass the ketchup? Hey, Bob, how about that Bears game? So it's like, do you really want to know what we do on tour? You know the story.
They don't really want to know.
No.
That's hilarious. Okay, so let's see. In Tampa, I would say the scariest thing that I ever encountered in Tampa was the alligator in your backyard. Now that you're in Tennessee, what's the scariest thing there?
White people.
I'm not gonna lie. I set that one up.
Yeah, I live up in the mountains. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and there's some interesting folks here. That's all I'm going to say. Coming from Florida, land of the white trash. This is another level, next level up. So interesting people. That's all I'm going to say. Mostly good people. Mostly good people though. They really do. They have they're good Southern people. They have a good heart, but I see some things that I just am like,
Okay, well, clearly you have many, many, many talents that are undeniable. What is your one useless one?
Just having useless knowledge, having a brain that just remembers, March 13th, 2004, when we did the interview on top of the Capitol Records building, I had a tuna fish sandwich before we did it. And I know that's what I had for lunch right before then, although I don't eat tuna fish. That's a bad example, but you get the
No, I will certify this that you absolutely have the craziest memory. Chet and I have said it everybody that knows you knows that that's how you are. You remember all the details. I'm shocked how your memory is. Like every time we get to chat, and you're like, oh yeah, this one time that It's amazing the amount
Yeah,
of talent
I
that
don't
you
know.
retain.
I don't know why, and it's debilitating at times because someone will start telling a story, and I don't want to be that guy. It's like, no, you're wrong. It wasn't a Sunday. It was a Saturday. You don't remember because you don't want to be the because how many times have we seen that person like, oh, here he is, the know-it-all again. So I just sit there, it's like you're wrong. But would you rather be right or everybody be happy? That's another life lesson,
Right? Well, it depends on
happy or right. Yeah.
If we're talking about Chet, I want to be right.
Of course.
Okay, so my last question of my 7 pop-up questions, and I always say they're quick fire, and they're never quick fire. But so you've survived the apocalypse. What's your new job? In a hypothetical situation, the apocalypse has happened. What's your job?
I am going to put together the first hair salons in my state of Tennessee.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
I know a bunch of people to hire. You'll be one of the first 2. I don't know a damn thing about hair, but you'll be the first person I hire.
Awesome. Pending I survive the apocalypse right along with you. Count me in.
There
I'm there. And only joking because, of course, I can't imagine you doing anything other than what you do because you were hands down put in this life to create amazing music, to touch people with the songs that you and the band, but you as well, that you write, to share your love of music with your podcast, to make people laugh hysterically. Your book is incredible. And even the calendar that we have the calendar hanging in the salon. I was literally, Chris, I was interviewing some people. I had a new hire come in. She was sitting in the chair and Chet's on one side of the desk, I'm on the other, and she keeps looking at the wall, like eyes agaze to the side. And it's literally like Uncle Al, or I can't even remember what the character's name is. And
Uncle Art.
Uncle Art. And she's looking at like, why does Chet and Amber have this dude hanging in the calendar?
Well, that's my mom. That's my uncle. That's my mom's brother, Uncle Art. So that's who that character was. And the fact that you have that in your soul, I thought you were trying to build your business. Come on, Amber.
It's only for like the behind the scenes. So yeah, you're present with us in the salon too. You see the woman 3 months down the road, you're like at the grocery store, you're like, why don't you come in for your hair? And I'm like, calendar. I just, You guys are weird. But I think what you're doing is amazing. The journey that you're continuing to put yourself on and put your love, your passion out, it's clear and it's evident, and you just stay the course, because I'm so grateful to call you a friend, but keep sharing with the masses, because I think it's truly amazing.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm very happy for you striking out on your own with your own business, and it's doing well. And it's your passion, and you were put here to do that as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Always supporting you. Always glad to get a chance to pick your brain and chat and have a good chuckle over the stupid years we've had together. So I'm always appreciative. And thank you so very much for taking some time to sit with me. And for everybody out there listening, tune in to Chris DeMakes a podcast. You will not be disappointed. It's so entertaining. Chris, you're just incredible. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. Have an awesome day. I'll see you later, buddy.
You too.